Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we back again. It's been a slow week. I'm Dennis Ragland. That's Frank Nair. This is outside the square circle. I want to make sure that you guys get to know us, like us, subscribe, share, do all those wonderful things. We're gonna start off talking about a little bit of an old topic because nothing's really been happening in boxing.
Yeah.
It's boxing is nothing's happening to the 20th against um, Keith Thurman and Manny Pacquiao. So we're gonna go ahead and rehash some old things, and you guys tell us what you think about it. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I think just like Dennis said, and actually it was pretty ironic that our schedules the last couple of weeks really haven't lined up, but it worked out because not very much has happened over the last couple of weeks. So we're like, if we would have recorded this episode a week ago, or even maybe a week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks ago, we'd probably be talking about the same stuff anyway. So it really lined up well with everything. But we're here in episode 8. I think it's proper to start off with probably the biggest news, or the biggest rumors, we should say, is that Canelo Alvarez and Golden Boy are really pushing hard for a Sergey Kovalev fight. There's been a lot of rumors in terms of what the weight could be, if there's a rehydration clause. At this point, I want to stay away from that because that's all hearsay. We really don't know. The one thing that we do know is, they want the fight, clearly, right? So I just want to ask you, if the fight gets made, I want to ask you two things. One, do you think it's a good fight for Canelo? And two, do you think he can beat Sergey Kovalev?
Well, first off, I say he got some balls.
Yeah.
He got some cojones on him.
Yeah.
For him to even want to do this says a lot about him as a fighter, But I gotta say, I don't see why he wants this fight. He has good fights at 160.
Mm-hmm.
There's Demetrius Andrade down there.
Mm-hmm.
Good technical fighter. He can beat anybody on when he got his A game. Jamal Charlo, monster. Even though he didn't get his last Brandon Adams, he didn't knock his last opponent out, but he did what he's supposed to do. He dominated from post to post. Canelo, I don't know what would make him want to take a challenge like this when there's other fights out there for him. So, for one, if he take this, can he beat Kovalev? He would have to fight the perfect fight because he's just a smaller fighter, and
Right.
Kovalev's gonna gun for him. Like I don't know. This is one thing. I don't know if Canelo has enough power to make him respect him. I mean, Ward, when he fought Kovalev, he made Kovalev respect him. He had like Andre Ward is not a mega knockout artist,
Right.
but he has enough to make you respect him and say, okay, I can't get hit with too many of those, or it's not gonna be good for me. Do Canelo have enough power to say, I can't get hit with too many of those, or it won't be good for me? Does Canelo possess that same thing? I don't know. So for him to win, for him to beat Kovalev, he will have to have what Chris Algieri coach was saying he had to have against Manny Pacquiao. He has to have a master boxing exhibition.
Yeah.
That's what Canelo would have to do. He would have to have a master boxing fight to beat him. Can he do it? I don't think so. I don't think he can. But the fact that he's choosing him says him and his team see something, or else because Canelo don't need Kovalev. He doesn't need to take this fight. For him taking this fight, one, he wants to beat the best. Two, he wants his name to go down with the all-time greats because it would. Let me say this. If Canelo took this fight and won, he's my number one pound for pound.
I mean,
he's my number one pound for pound. But he's my number one. I'm not putting anybody over him if he beat Kovalev.
At that point, there's not even an argument for anyone else at number one if he takes and wins that fight.
That's what I'm saying. So can he beat him? I don't know. But to beat him, he will have to have a master boxing exhibition. And the second thing, what was the second question?
Do you think in general it's a good fight for him in terms of his career?
Legacy wise, it's a great fight.
Yeah.
Career wise, it's not a good fight because he doesn't need it. It's a big risk that he doesn't need.
Right.
If he wants, like, listen, if he wants to move up, there's guys at 168 that he can fight. He's going to 175. He came from 154, dominated 154, did his thing at 160. He fought a 168 guy. Now he's trying to fight the best at 175. He knows. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
he just jumped 168 because he didn't beat an official champion at 168. So he's just jumping that to go there. So it's not in terms of his career. It's not a good fight. If I'm Oscar De La Hoya, man, I'm like Canelo. I'm talking him out of it. Like, Canelo, listen, we don't need this. Let's think about it. Let's fight somebody at 168. Then we go back and finish our business at 160, and we'll look spectacular doing so. If I'm Oscar De La Hoya, that's what I'm doing. What do you think?
Yeah, I see. My thing is, there are two things that I wanted to touch on. You brought up one. You didn't go too deep in it, which is a good segue for myself. So one, just like you said, it's clear that they see something in Sergey Kovalev. But what I think they see is a false perception. And there's been this perception of Sergey Kovalev since he lost to Andre Ward, right? After the first fight, it was split down the middle. Maybe more people thought Kovalev won, maybe 60-40, but it was a close fight and it was a very good fight. The one thing that fight did prove is that he's world class, right? You just competed with Andre Ward and arguably won. So then the perception started to change in the second fight where he gets knocked out. And for whatever reason, people have kind of revised history to make it seem like Andre Ward dominated that fight. And I remember me and you were talking, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know myself, I had Sergey Kovalev up one round going into that knockout round. You had him down one round going into that round, if you remember. But I said all that to say it was a close fight. It was just like the first fight, or the second half of the first fight, where it was very give and take.
Anybody that thought Kovalev won the first fight,
right? But the thing was, people just kind of looked at the Andre Ward TKO 7 or 8 or whatever it was, and was like, "Oh, he dominated." It was like, did you guys actually watch the fight? Because Sergey was in that fight, like it was another competitive fight. And then he goes in against a later Alvarez. And in the first fight, I had him up. I think I had Alvarez winning 1 or 2 rounds going into that 8th or 9th or whatever it was. And he gets caught on the button and gets knocked out. And again, people are like, oh, Sergey's done. And I'm like, maybe has his punch resistance maybe gone down a little bit? Sure, maybe. But what I'm seeing with my eyes as him as a boxer, nothing's changed. Like, he's still a bad dude. You know what I mean? Like, then he goes in against Alvarez. He gets the he wins the rematch. And he looked spectacular. He boxed on the outside. He didn't really sit down on his punches as much to avoid some more punches. So I'm looking at them and I'm saying, are you guys falling for what I deem as a false perception out of Sergey Kovalev? Because realistically, he's a big dude. He's coming in fight night weighing 185, 190, right? Like, he's just very, very big. And two, I think if you're talking about, boxing skills, Canelo probably has the edge there, but Sergey isn't very far off. He's not the most defensive guy, but even coming forward, he's still attentive to defense. You saw what he did against Bernard Hopkins. I mean, you saw what he did against Andre Ward in both fights. Outside of the big right hand that hurt him really bad, he wasn't getting hit too flush with anything. So he's one of those guys, that Eastern Euro, that knows how to come forward and take the least amount of damage that you can while still pressuring somebody. Right? Like, he's good at shifting. He's good at distance management. It's hard for me to envision Canelo Alvarez winning that fight. And that's me being a huge Canelo fan. That's me having him number 1 on my pound-for-pound list currently. But it's like, you kind of break down the style of the fight. He's going to bank on Sergey Kovalev coming forward all night, and he's going to look for counter shots. But if Sergey really wants to, he can stay on the outside just like he did against Later. And win the fight, I think, fairly easily. He's much lengthier. He's much bigger. And then if Canelo gets on the inside, he can just wrap him up. You know what I mean? Like, and then you even look at it from a point where, you brought up a great point where it's like, does Canelo have the power to bother him? Because if the game plan is Sergey's going to come forward, and let's say Sergey does come forward and try to pressure him, does Canelo even have the power to keep him off of him all night? You know what I mean? Like, this is a legit 175-pound fighter. This isn't, this isn't Rocky Fielding, and that's no disrespect, but this dude has proven on the world level multiple times that he's one of the best, and I think currently the best at 175. So it's a super dangerous fight, but I share the same sentiment as you. You have to take your hat off to Canelo. Like, I don't understand. People are going to always find something to say about whoever he fights, but if he takes this fight, I don't see what the criticism could possibly be. My second point with the Canelo thing, you know what this actually shows me? And I just thought about this actually the other day. I don't think Canelo's knees are going to stand up very much longer. I think they're planning. I think that's why how you said this is great for his legacy, but not necessarily his boxing career in the immediate. I think that's why. I think he wants to start knocking on these doors that maybe he wouldn't have for a few more years, because you're starting to hear about this knee. It had to get scoped a couple of times. He's wearing the knee brace in the ring. His lateral movement, granted, it's never been great, but when he's on the back foot, it's been very good. But now he's staying in the pocket a lot more, even coming forward a lot more, and something that you never really saw too much out of Canelo. You know what I mean? So I think that's the biggest point for me, is I think that's why he's looking towards a fight like that. And I wouldn't even be surprised if he were to take another huge fight at either 168 or 175 if he beats Sergey, maybe a Callum Smith in England or something. Who knows? But yeah, I think overall, man, there's a lot of points with that fight. And if it does get made, we'll have a whole episode, obviously, really breaking down stylistically what each guy can do. But on the outside, I don't really like it for him. And the last thing, really, you talk about the power that Canelo can bring at 175. The one thing we do know is that his chin is incredible. It was incredible at 154, 160, and then 168. Rocky didn't really land anything, but you would assume just with the confidence that he had that he wasn't scared of anything. But man, jumping up to 175 against one of the hardest pound-for-pound punchers in the game, I don't care how big of a chin you have. Canelo's about 5'7", 5'8". You know what I mean? Like, he's a small guy, even for 160. So it's like, it's tough, but just like you said, you have to applaud him. Anything else on that before we move on?
No, I mean, I just hope his knees do last up. I don't want to see another Sergio Martinez. I mean, another guy that had great athletic ability when his knees cooperated, and it was like he was one. I love watching Maravilla. He was one of the guys I love watching him. His style, the way he fought, the action he brought, and then his career was ended early by his knees. I mean, and I'm not saying that because his age, he was up in age. That's because he entered boxing at a later age. But,
right.
So he was still relatively young boxing wise. I'm saying his career wise, and I hope that doesn't happen to Canelo. But we'll see what's going to happen.
Agreed. I agree wholeheartedly. So moving on, we'll stick into the relatively same division here. We had a couple of guys. We can kind of talk about both at once, just so the episode isn't too long. To give you guys a sneak behind the curtain, we have a pretty long list of of points here. So I think if we were to elaborate very deeply, this episode would be, I think, a little too long. But Jamal Charlo, you alluded to him. He didn't get the knockout versus Brandon Adams, but did what he had to do. Andrade, same thing against Sulecki. Was pretty dominant, but towards the end of the fight, I know a lot of people didn't like the way he finished it. I want to ask you this. And then maybe you can even break down each fight as well. But who do you think had the better performance?
I think Andrade looked better. They both did what they had to do. They both fought very tough guys. But I just thought Andrade, he dropped the guy, and he made it look like he wasn't supposed to be in the ring with him. And that's what it was. You know what I mean? It was how he did it. He made it look like, hey, I'm a level above you, and I'm gonna show why I am a champion and why you're not.
Right.
That's why I had to pick Andrade. But no disrespect to Jamal, because Jamal did his thing too. He dominated from. I think I gave that guy 1 round. So he dominated.
Yeah,
I gave him 1 round. So 11 rounds, he dominated that guy, and he showed that he was on a different level. Jamal showed that he's not some contender, that he's a champion. Jamal is a champion. It's only a matter of time before he becomes champion at 160, like he was at 154.
Were you disappointed in either of them for not getting a knockout?
No, because they were fighting 2 guys that knew how to evade it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They wasn't fighting chinny guys. It's like, oh man, he's chinny. Or they weren't fighting guys that didn't that like say this guy has zero power, so you should be able to press him all night and get him out of there. They wasn't fighting guys that had been knocked out a bunch of times before. They were fighting guys that knew how to avoid getting knocked out. Those guys were tough guys, and they came and put on a great show. They made the fight competitive for what they could do, and you're not gonna knock everybody out.
Right. Yeah, I share the same sentiment. The only disappointing thing for me, well, a couple of things from each guy. And granted, this is me being very nitpicky, but I'm going to do this because I look at these guys as two of the best at 160 and guys that, should be in the conversation of fighting Canelo and or Triple G next. But I think these are some of the reasons why they're not. For me, the only thing that was disappointing for me in Andrade, it wasn't that he didn't get the knockout, and this is happened for quite some time now. It seems like his power itself fades later in fights. He gets early knockdowns, he gets mid-round knockdowns, and I'm not saying I want the knockout every single time. I'm not even saying I necessarily want a knockout, but it seems as fights continue to go on, that his opponent doesn't necessarily respect his power anymore. But just like you alluded to, he's such a good boxer that he's still in control, so that aspect really doesn't mean anything anymore. But I will say this, I don't think that favors him very well in a fight against a guy like Triple G, because if that power starts fading and he no longer respects you, we've seen Triple G take multiple shots to try and land his one shot. So and that's why I think Canelo beat him, especially that second fight, because you know what I mean? Canelo made him respect his power for 12 rounds. He's not just going to go in on you on all pressure. And I would like to see Andrade, I don't know if he's not sitting down on his punches later in fights or he's just conserving his energy. He doesn't want to get too sloppy. But I just feel like he can't get away with that at the elite level. Nonetheless, I was very impressed by his performance. I was actually really impressed with Brandon Adams too. I'd seen him fight before,
Yeah.
And you had even said it. You're like, he reminds you of Sean Porter, and I thought it was a pretty good comparison. But he boxed pretty well on the back foot, and there were even times where I thought he was in control of some rounds. Just like you, I think I gave Brandon Adams 2, maybe 3 rounds, but I was being a little bit generous towards him because I did enjoy the way he was fighting. But all in all, Jamal Charlo dominated the fight. But I would like to see him again. I would like to see him against someone maybe on the B level or C level to see really where he is to further assess him.
But they were saying that he's a 154 guy. So if he's a 154 guy, I would love to see him there. I think he mixed up well against anybody at 154.
I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I mean, you could tell he's a very muscle-bound guy, but even his height wasn't there for 160, yeah. and he was almost a little too muscular for 160. Like he moved up in weight, and instead of being a little flabby, which physique really doesn't ever mean anything, but usually you're able to be a little bit more fluid if you're not as tight when you're that muscular. But he just gained the muscle as he moved up to the weight class. But no, just like you, I certainly wasn't disappointed in either fighter. I thought they both put on good performances. I think Jamal really didn't get out of first gear, and I think we've kind of seen that with him at the 160-pound division. Even the couple of times he's gotten the knockout,
he kind of cruises sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. The one thing that I did see from Andrade is that, especially early in the fight, once the second half of the fight came, he didn't really press for the knockout anymore, but he at least went for it. I want to see someone like Jamal Charlo with that shotgun jab and that huge right hand, like at least go for it. You know what I mean? Like if you have to take a round or two off because maybe you punched yourself out, fine, but you're winning this fight anyway. So it's like at least that was the only thing that I think I was disappointed with him, but all in all, he looked great. Do you think either of them, or first of all, do you think there's a possibility that they fight each other next? If not, do you think
that?
Yeah, but I would also like either fighter to fight Danny Jacobs next. I think that has the possibility to be a great fight and a measuring stick for both of them.
You know what? I would like both of them to be like, because I don't want them to. I kind of don't want them to fight each other yet, but I wouldn't be mad at that.
Right.
I would like to see Jamal fight I would like to see him fight a young, tough guy. So I like somebody, I'm trying to think, like, who could he fight at 160 at that level? Who used to be a former champion or somebody?
But I think Derevianchenko could be a good fight for either of them as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but if they can't get that, by all means, they should go ahead and fight each other. Go ahead and fight each other. And the winner, I feel like the winner that deserves Triple G or Canelo. If they fight each other, then they deserve to get that payday. But right now, if I'm their promoter, I'm looking for somebody tough, like you said, to get these guys and see, hey, can there be? Because Canelo's looking elsewhere for his competition right now.
Right.
But you know what? I'm gonna be honest. I think Andrade being a champion deserves a Triple G fight.
I think fair.
He's a champion. He has a title.
Right.
So he deserves a Triple G fight. I mean, if they make it with Charlo, that's cool because he's a worthy opponent. But he deserves a payday. You know, he's not only did he win the title, but he's fighting his defenses and showing that he is a true champion. He deserves a Triple G fight.
I agree with you. I will say this: the one thing that and maybe we can even get your opinion on this as well. But I was talking to one of my buddies the other day, and you see a lot of people who will say, "Oh, well, why won't Triple G or Canelo fight Andre?" We'll just use Andre as an example. And then the answer usually is, well, he hasn't really earned it. He hasn't, kind of how I said before, I want him to have, because I know he has the talent, but I want him to have that fight that says, I'm here, I'm ready, I want, I now have this resume that deserves that. And then the retort normally is, oh, well, did Rocky Fielding deserve it? Or did Chavez Jr. deserve it? Or and I get that. I 100% understand that. But the way people have to look at things is that if I'm picking between a litter of guys who don't really deserve to fight me, why am I going to pick the hardest fight? What people have to realize is that these guys aren't scared of each other. Like it's very, very seldom and very far and few between that someone is like literally scared of another fighter. This is a business at the end of the day. So when you look at it from that lens, it totally makes sense why these fights aren't happening. But then you look back with Erislandy Lara, he just kept calling out Canelo. He kept knocking out these wins and saying, I want Canelo. He goes to the press conference. He put himself in that position.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I want to see from these guys. Even if they're not fighting the best of competitions, do not stop talking about Triple G or Canelo. And it seems like, I mean, if someone asked them about them, oh, yeah, sure, I'd love that fight. I do want to fight them. I think I can beat them. Dude, get on Instagram every day. Tweet Oscar De La Hoya. He's going to respond to you. You know what I mean? Like, tweet Dazen. Like, get your name out there some way, somehow, if you're not going to put together a performance, like a knockout reel type of performance that's going to go viral on SportsCenter and in ESPN's Twitter. And people start talking like, oh, man, I would really like that fight. If the public's not demanding it, you have to put yourself in that position. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But, I mean, just like you said.
You got to knock on that door. You got to knock on that door until somebody answers you.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Something else that I wanted to touch. Did you get a chance to see the Rigondeaux fight?
Yeah, against Julio Ceja.
Dude, that was an entertaining ass fight. Like I wasn't expecting it to be. That was a slugfest.
Rigondeaux didn't fight like himself like that though.
No.
He I used to be doing all that. He stood there and was like, "Let's go."
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Obviously, we know he's not the youngest guy. Do you think his legs are just gone?
You know what? I feel like, to me, this is just my opinion. That was a I got something to prove fight. After the Lomachenko, because after the Lomachenko quitting, he pretty much got embarrassed. That was him saying, I'm here. I'm not done. I'll give you guys exciting fights. Because, remember, he was being criticized for being too boring.
Right.
You know, because he was just so defensive-minded and on pop shot, moving, not really mixing in. He stood there and was like, you know what? I'm going to give you guys what you want, and I'm going to give you guys an exciting one. I really feel like there was I'm here. I'm not done, everybody.
Right.
Look at this fight.
Yeah, no, and it could be that. Realistically, I think there's only two options with that answer. It's either, his legs are completely shot, or just your answer is like, no. Like, I think he still has some legs, and he would use them if he had to, but he just wanted to show everyone, hey, just like you said, I'm here. Here's a highlight reel knockout. Here's, me flashing my power a little bit, and me giving the fans some excitement. So I really don't know where I stand with that. I guess I want to see his next fight to make the further assessment. But I mean, you could be completely right. You know what I mean? I would certainly hope that that's the case, because just like you pointed out with Sergio Martinez, I don't like when you see fighters, you know what I mean, like start to lose that ability, especially when it's just like one fight they have it, then all of a sudden, bam, it's gone. They're a totally different fighter. Yeah, that's always really, really demoralizing. Do you think?
Let me think. I want to know about the knockout though. Do you agree with that knockout?
That's what I was just gonna say. I didn't. I didn't like the stoppage. That being said, I mean, I thought he was hurt. I thought he was pretty hurt. I do think Rigondeaux was going to go on to finish that fight, because make no mistake, just like you said, he gets this rap that, oh, he's boring, he moves, he pot shots, but when he has a fighter hurt, he knows how to finish. He's finished guys in the past, and he has very good power, you know, for the 122, 126 pound weight class. That being said, I just felt like Ceja, he followed the referee's instructions. He moved forward. He was bouncing on his toes. Like,
I don't know what he's seeing that made him stop it.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, his facial expression didn't really change. He didn't look like he was disgruntled at all. He didn't look like he was distraught. I mean, it looked like he wanted to continue. It looked like, granted, he was hurt, but it did look like his legs were under him enough that you could have given him another chance in there at it. So, yeah, and I'm usually not the one to say things are too early, because the one thing that me and you have always touched on is that this isn't a game. These guys aren't playing boxing. This is life and death, quite literally. I mean, we saw Adonis Stevenson, you know, earlier in the year or late last year, you know, go into a coma after a fight. We've seen guys like Jermaine Taylor have a brain bleed after fights. Zab Judah is the more recent example, having brain bleed. So I'm never the one to be too critical, but I wasn't a fan of the stoppage. I thought, especially because I thought Ceja was up in the fight. I thought he was winning the fight. So it's like, when you add even that element in, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you have to give the guy every chance that you can. I mean, what do you think's next for Rigondeaux? I definitely think he's going to get another big fight before it's all said and done with his career. I think politics wouldn't get involved in this, but me personally, I would like a Gary Russell fight. I think they're very similar in size. I think especially with the way that Rigo fought this last fight, like, if he fights anything like that, that's going to be a very entertaining fight.
That's what I want to see. I want to see him fight another fight and make sure that he get his confidence back, get him back rolling. Then after that, I want to see him at 126, man. Like, mixing up with those names, those Gary Russells, those guys that got titles there, and then from there, go for the champion. See if you can become a champion again. Prove everybody right or wrong that I think you can or will is done by that performance. I mean, that's what I say.
No, I agree. I think there's really only there's a singular direction to his career at this point, because he is getting older, and I mean, his legs may be shot. So I think you get another fight in just as another tune-up, and then you put him right back in, whether it's for a belt or not. But it's going to be a really big name, I think. Not his next fight, but the fight after that.
I wouldn't be mad at him versus Leo Santa Cruz.
I wouldn't be mad at that either. That's a fight that he wanted some years ago, and Leo's camp didn't want any part of it.
But I think they'll take it now, because I think he guys are more inclined to take a fight when they see that he's not invincible.
Right. I agree.
I think Leo would be like, I can beat this guy probably now.
Right. I would love it. I would absolutely. And I think now is the time that it would be more competitive. The time that Rigondeaux's team wanted it, I think he would have took Leo to school. Leo was still very raw at that point. I think that's why his team steered clear of it. Like, he caught a lot of criticism for it, but realistically, I don't think Leo said no to it. Granted, in the interviews, he was kind of bullish, but I think that was his team saying, hey, when his name gets brought up, just dance around it. Yeah. We're not, you know what I mean? We're not, I don't know if they told him we're not ready for it, but I think everyone knew at that point that they weren't. But I think moving on, you know, we already talked about one Charlo. What did you think about Jermell Charlo's performance against Jorge Cota a few weeks ago?
Remembering it, he looked great.
Yeah.
I'm ready for him to, like, he don't need another fight to show. Like, I'm ready for him to get his title back if he can.
Right.
Because I'll be honest, I thought he won the first fight. I'm one of those people that thought he won.
I'm in there with you.
And There's no knock to him. Who did he fight again?
Tony Harrison.
Tony Harrison. There's no knock to Tony Harrison at all, because Tony Harrison came out there and boxed his ass off.
Yeah.
But I don't think he beat the champion. I don't think he took the title. But the judges seen it the other way. So I'm ready for that fight to happen. And after that, I really want to. I want to see Jermell. I want to see him and Erickson Lubison mix it up, man. I think Lubin. I think Erickson Lubin. I really think he got his head back. I really think he's more focused now. I don't think the moment is too big for him. I think now he's more grounded and he's ready for it, and he's gonna learn from that knockout. Because I seen his last fight,
he looked good.
Like he's learned from it, and like he's positioning himself better. He's more smart and defensive minded. So I would like to see that fight if Charlo can get his belt back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that rematch is pretty inevitable. Like, you had a dude who was 21 years old going in there against Jermell Charlo, and there certainly isn't any excuse. I don't remember if we were podcasting consistently, but I remember both me and you had this sentiment. I didn't like the fight when it happened. I thought he was too green still. Like, I just did not like. Jermell had been tested to that point that, you know what I mean? Like, you knew what he was.
Some guys.
Right, exactly. He didn't have that experience just yet, but yeah, I would be interested in it. I thought the fight itself, I mean, Jermell did what he had to do. No disrespect to Jorge Cota. He's a solid fighter, but Jermell was clearly head and shoulders above him. Looked spectacular, with the knockout. I will say this. Well, let me ask you before I tell you my opinion, because the rumor mill has churned, and I don't think we touched on it too much. Do you think that Tony Harrison faked an injury to not fight Jermell immediately?
You know what? It's two parts to me. It's like the devil and the angel on both shows. The devil part was like, nigga, you ain't ready.
Right.
Yes, when he said that, he's like, oh, I don't want to, because remember he made when Kevin Durant got injured, he made like a tweet like, oh, this is why I don't listen to fans. I don't rush back. I was like, bull crap, bro. You just weren't ready for the fight. You want to hang on to that. And I even said it to you. He wants to hang on to that title a little bit longer. But then it's the other side, like, you know what? You got to give a guy the benefit of the doubt. These guys are training hard. They beating their bodies up, sparring. Injuries are prone to happen. You got to give them the benefit of the doubt. So with that being said, when I come together, I say, you know what? I think that it was a genuine injury. I think he could have fought with it, but he didn't want to have that excuse of I fought with this and I lost. So he wanted to be fair to himself, and that's fine to be fair to yourself. Give yourself the best shot to win. He wanted to be fair to himself to say, you know what? I don't want no excuses. And this time, because I always hear this, fighters always say nobody's 100% healthy.
Right.
You always gonna have little nicks and dings. You're just gonna have to live with it and fight with it. You're not going to 100% healthy. So if I just want to I just want to say, you know what? I'm ready for the fight to happen now. No more excuses. You had that. You passed it. Let's fight.
I agree, and I'm. It's funny that we pretty much agree exactly when it comes to that opinion. I do think it was an actual injury. I don't think it was bad enough for him to actually pull out, though. I think it was just how you said he didn't want to have anything wrong with him going into the fight. That way, he didn't have that excuse afterwards. But it's like, oh, well, I actually hurt my ankle in training camp, and then everyone said, because then, I mean, the same fans who got mad at him for pulling out would have been the same ones like, oh, shut up, you should have just pulled out then if you were hurt. And it's like, you can't win for losing, you know what I mean? But I'm curious to see if he's going to take that fight immediately. I mean, with there being a little bit of a layoff. Do you think I would actually be upset if he did this, but do you think he should or will take a tune-up fight now, maybe to kind of hold on to that belt for a little bit longer before hopping back in the ring with Jermell?
That would be the chump way out. I would have to be real. As a fan, that's a chump way out. That he gave you the opportunity to fight him. You won. Give that man his rematch and give him the opportunity. You beat him this time, you move on and you do whatever you want with your title and your career. But he gave you the opportunity, give it back to him.
I agree. Especially just like you alluded to, most people think Charlo won that fight. I've seen guys even have it as wide as like 9-3 for Charlo, which I think was a bit much. I had it 7-5 for Charlo,
Yeah.
but I thought it was a firm 7-5. Like that was the most rounds I could give to Harrison. Um, but that being said, the general consensus is that you lost the fight. So it's like you can't. I wouldn't. If I were him, I would want to be hungry to get back in there to prove. I mean, kind of like Tim Bradley after he beat Pacquiao in the first fight. A lot of people thought,
Yeah.
man, he won. So he said, look, I got to get back in there. I have to show that I won. He ultimately lost the next two fights, but I respect that mindset. I mean, we can go on for days about Tim Bradley though. That's our
Yeah.
boy. Like just everything about him.
Guys
Yeah.
that had that mentality.
No, people just aren't cut from the cloth that Tim is. He was just a true, a true fighter at the end of the day. Really only a couple of points for us to get through here, guys, before we get out of here. We may have another player here at heavyweight, and I think I mean we certainly have both done it, but I think he's been sort of the forgotten man. Obviously lost to Anthony Joshua. But Joseph Parker looked pretty good beating Alex Leopai. Granted, Leopai's getting old. I mean, not getting older. He's old now. He doesn't look himself. He looked out of shape.
See that Leopai used to be big and muscular.
Yeah, he looks.
He just looks like a Samoan.
He looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy.
That's what I'm saying. Like you know, what I'm saying how the Samoans are big, but they're not like muscular big. They just body big. That's how he looks.
They're like boulders. Yeah, like there's no definition, but just big. Yeah. Do you think? I mean, well, let me ask you this. I don't think we have to assess the fight. Joseph Parker won every single second of the fight up until the stoppage. Would you put Joseph Parker in the top 5 at heavyweight right now?
No, but he's in the top 10.
Yeah, I think top. So where do you think? Do you think top 9, or is he number 10?
He's in the top 9.
So is he number 8?
He's right around like number 8 or 9. If I had to dig through it, he's right.
Okay.
8 or 9.
That's fair. I think I think he would be anywhere from like 7 to 9 for me. I'd have to really sit down and make the list, but I think that's fair. I think I mean, he had some pretty strong words in regards to Andy Ruiz, basically saying like, I wouldn't even take the fight even now that he has the belts because I already beat him. What did you think about that?
I think that he would be a fool to not take that fight. He would be a fool to not take that fight and not get those titles, and then be able to call himself the man. And now he can demand a fight. Now he can demand if you want a rematch for AJ for big money. There you go. If you want to unify and say, Wilder, let's go. Nice big money fight. Let's go. He would be a damn fool to say, oh, I already beat you before, so I don't need to beat you again. No. You got something I want? Let's go again. I'm gonna beat you again.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was actually pretty surprised by his sentiments. He's like, yeah, I already beat him, so like I don't have too much to prove. But I'm thinking like, if you feel that, granted, like I've told people before, I had Ruiz winning that fight. Granted, it was very close, but like if you felt very strongly that you beat him, why wouldn't you rematch? And now that the stakes are even higher, like that was kind of weird. But that being said, he's in a good position right now. Joseph Parker is. I think some good fights for him looking forward. Obviously, Ruiz and AJ are going to get it on again, so you throw those two names out of there. Wilder and Fury are going to be on their trajectory, so you get them out of there. But I would be really interested to see him fight Jarrell Miller now that he's had to really take a back seat because the guy who replaced him beat Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? So, I mean, does that almost make too much sense where it's like it probably won't happen because it makes so much sense? Or do you see that fight next for him?
I don't. You know what, man? You just never can tell. But I don't think it's gonna happen. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think I gotta see how things shake up in the heavyweight division. Because right now, I would like to see like him and Dylan White would just make a great fight.
That's another good fight. Yeah.
But will that happen? Probably not. You just never know how things are going to shake up in the heavyweight division. But I mean, if I'm the matchmaker, I'm making those fights because those are the fights that you get to see who really deserves the title shot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because after Wilder fights, well, Wilder's pretty locked up because he got Ortiz then Fury again.
Yep.
But after Ruiz and AJ fight, you want to be the guy to say, hey, I want that rematch with either one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think matching him against a Jarrell Miller, against a Dillian White, that gives you a stake, just like you said, to say, hey, I just beat this guy. I deserve this fight now. But because these guys are taken up, it also gives you an opportunity to take a softer touch to stay in shape before you would ultimately get one of those guys. So you would be able to take one of those soft touches, like another Alex Leopai type of fight, and no one would criticize you because they're like, look, you're in line for this fight now. Cool, stay in shape, get your training camp over with, and then now you have it. So it's like that's who I would be targeting if I was him in his camp. But just like you said, we really have to see how things shape up. I mean, last thing from me, that I was probably more disappointed than most fans were, just because I know people who enjoy UFC and just kind of non-boxing combat sports, but obviously Paulie Malignaggi lost in his bare knuckle fight. What was it? I think 3 weeks ago now, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Did you get a chance to see that?
I watched most of it. I didn't watch all of it. I caught it in the later rounds, but
yeah,
when I did catch it, Paulie was boxing, but he wasn't really dominating like I thought he would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was letting the other guy advance a little too much. Like, he wasn't as busy as I thought he would be. I thought he'd be moving around busy and fast. He wasn't. I gotta say this. I think Paulie just needs to focus on commentating because he's great at that. I think his best boxing days, bare knuckle or with gloves, are behind him. And before something happens, like getting really injured, or because we seen his hands, not his hand like it was messed up again.
Yeah.
I think it's time for him to gracefully bow out and say, hey, you know what? I've done this. I've been a 2-time champion. I'm going to lead this sport for the younger guys.
I agree. I think my prediction was that he was going to, really, really beat the dude and probably stop him, not necessarily on a big knockout punch, but based on cuts, because he's just like you said, he's very fast. He's very accurate. He's one of those dudes that without gloves, I mean, he was cutting people up with gloves because he was, you know what I mean? Like, he had that good jab, and his punches weren't always, I mean, he didn't sit down on them too much, but he knew how to really place them. And the one thing, just like you said, I'm blanking on his opponent, Lobov. He let Lobov come forward a ton. And I know he broke his hand, but it's like, you knew that coming into the fight that your hands were brittle. So why are you sitting down on big right hands when, one, you're not a big puncher already, and two, your hands have broken in the past? I was 100% expecting him to go in with the mindset of, all I have to do is continue to touch this guy. Be quick, be accurate, and touch him. I don't have gloves on. I'm going to hurt him either way just because I can place these punches well. And in the second round, don't get me wrong, the punch was beautiful. It landed great. He jabbed to the stomach, came up top with the right hand, and like a lot of people predicted, he hit him right on the forehead and shattered his right hand, and he didn't throw it for the rest of the fight, really. And ultimately, he lost. And I enjoyed the build-up to it, though. I thought it was good, but I was very disappointed just because I think just as diehard boxing fans, we kind of have that natural, I guess, rivalry with MMA. So it sucks to see, one of your guys lose in, granted it wasn't actually boxing, but in a form of boxing that kind of gives a tally score to the MMA community, which doesn't really sit well with me. So I really hope the one thing, Chael Sonnen, and he's a douchebag. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a MMA UFC guy, and he had said afterwards, like, oh, this just further he's been saying this for years, but he's like, it just further proves that boxing's not really a sport. Like, it's bullshit. It's not good. Like, those guys aren't really, they're not athletic. They don't do anything well. They only know how to throw punt. Like, that's it. Like, they don't have anything else. And so Paulie was like, okay, cool. You weigh 175 pounds. Go fight Sergey Kovalev. Exactly. Like, go fight, and I would love to see, like, you
get in the ring with Sergey Kovalev and then say that.
I mean, but forget even Sergey. Get in the ring with, like, a top 50 dude. A top 70. Get in the ring with an amateur who fights it. You can get your fucking head knocked off.
Get in there. I want just get in there with a name guy at 175. Chael. You know what I mean? Just get in there with one of these guys, and I bet you you'll be seeing a difference too. If not, we've seen what happened when Conor McGregor, like he said, it's a whole different thing from 5 rounds to 12 rounds. You'll be gassed, first of all, and you're gonna get probably put out just because you're gonna be so gassed.
Yeah, I mean, Fuck, you could probably put Bernard Hopkins back in there. He still looks like he's in shape. He would beat the shit out of Sonnen too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good stuff, man. Yeah, so guys, I mean, a little bit longer episode than usual. But like I said, we've had some things build up over the last couple of weeks. There's not too much to talk about. We're going to be back next week. I would say that unless there's really big news, it'll be pretty much a whole preview of Pacquiao versus Thurman. That's going to be the big fight coming up, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. I'm very excited for the fight. I think it's going to be. I think it can go a multitude of ways. I think knockout is on the table for both guys. That'll be something that me and you will really touch on next week. But guys, thanks for listening. Like Dennis said at the top of the episode, remember to subscribe at wherever you're listening. We're on YouTube, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we're on Spotify. So, subscribe there. We don't have a consistent day where we do release the episode. So if you're subscribed, you'll know exactly when it's uploaded. Outside of that, remember to follow us on Instagram as well as like our Facebook page. Both are outside the squared circle. If you type that in the search bar, will be the first thing that pops up. But thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week. Dennis, any last words before we get out of here?
Like, share, subscribe. Do that. We need that.
Exactly. All right, guys. See you next week.